Thank you guys for joining me here on the last segment of today's show. Just a quick Monday Night Football preview for you guys. A big game that we have in store for us tonight, like I mentioned before. Not only is it a game between two very good teams in the Ravens and the Chargers, it's also two teams that are right next to each other in the playoff seedings, like I said, because the Chargers currently sit at the number 5 spot in the playoffs, and the Ravens, after their latest loss to the Steelers, dropped behind the Chargers, and now they sit at the number 6 seed in the AFC playoff race so far. And now they face each other. Obviously, the winner, if the Chargers win, they're going to hold on to that 5th seed even more. But the Ravens have an opportunity to kind of jump over them and get back to the number 5 seed if they do win tonight. So it's a big game in terms of that, but also we have two brothers facing off tonight. The coach of the Ravens, John Harbaugh, is facing off against his brother, Jim Harbaugh, who made his return to the NFL this season after spending his time in Michigan as well, winning a national title and all that sort of stuff. After, previously being a coach in the NFL, he went over to college and now he returns. And not only are the Chargers playing great, but I think they have a good shot in this game. So before we get into the predictions and everything like that, just a little bit more about both of these two teams. The Chargers enter this game with a 7-3 record, while the Ravens sit at 7-4. Los Angeles just defeated the Bengals last Sunday on Sunday Night Football in a great game, a very high-scoring game that they just barely won there towards the end, while the Ravens dropped the game to Pittsburgh, and now they're sitting at 7-4, like I said. But in terms of just head-to-head matchups in this series, Baltimore has won 4 straight games over the Chargers in the regular season. But in terms of the AFC West, in which the Chargers take part in, the Broncos, the Raiders, and the Kansas City Chiefs, the Ravens this year are 1-2 against AFC West opponents this year, losing to the Raiders at home, losing to the Chiefs in Kansas City, and they only just got their win against the Denver Broncos a couple of weeks ago. So it hasn't been too great of a showing so far against the AFC West, and the Chargers are definitely the second best team, I guess you could say, behind the Kansas City Chiefs. So from that sort of logic, it shouldn't be a cakewalk by any means for the Ravens tonight. And in terms of them and Lamar Jackson, also he's 6-2 on Monday Night Football, and he hasn't thrown any interceptions and has thrown 20 touchdowns in all of his Monday Night Football games combined. So he does very well for himself on Monday Night Football as well. So taking that into account and looking at the Baltimore Ravens a bit closer, I mentioned some of the significant injuries that were revolving around this game, and none bigger than the Ravens middle linebacker Roquan Smith. He has been officially ruled out, and he is inactive tonight with that hamstring injury that he suffered last week at Pittsburgh. He hasn't been able to recover, so the Ravens are going to be missing their best defensive player, obviously on that side of the ball, Roquan Smith. For as shaky as the Ravens defense has been this year, you really can't say anything about Roquan Smith. Nothing negative at all, really, because he's the quarterback of that team. He personifies everything that the Ravens are. He's their leader. He brings the energy. He quarterbacks their defense, and really just has the presence around him as the embodiment of what being a Baltimore Raven is. So the fact that he's not playing is huge. It's massive, honestly. Because I knew there was a chance he couldn't play, but I didn't think he was actually going to miss this game. I think it's the first game he's missed as a Raven for an injury in his career being a Baltimore Raven. So that's pretty significant. And there was also other injuries like Tyler Linderbaum that was dealing with a back injury for the Ravens. He was questionable, but he is active tonight. He should be able to play. Travis Jones, their defensive tackle, also was limited yesterday, but I don't see him on the injury report, so he should be good to go. And I already talked about Roquan Smith, so all those two other guys are good to go, but unfortunately, we're not going to see Roquan Smith tonight playing for the Baltimore Ravens. And really, just in this game, the Ravens are looking to avoid their second losing streak this year. After starting the year 0-2, they've won pretty much the majority of their games going forward. There's a couple losses in there, but not consecutively, obviously. So they're in danger of going back to that if they drop this game to the Chargers. And also, looking at their pass defense, because I think that's the biggest thing that people really take away from the Ravens and how shaky it has been. It looked a little bit better last week against the Steelers, considering they didn't score a touchdown. But it should continue to look a little bit better, I believe, just because the Chargers, they don't necessarily have a bona fide, X factor kind of wide receiver like Jamar Chase, right? Like Jamar Chase absolutely torched the Ravens whenever he played them. But, you could argue that they didn't win despite all of that. And the Steelers won, playing a more conservative, not really offensive juggernaut sort of game themselves. So I mentioned that, but, you never know when it comes to these games. And the Chargers are, considering what I just mentioned, right, them not having this all-world wide receiver or something like that, they're still 7-3. So that's a lot of credit to Jim Harbaugh and the job that they've done as an offense with Greg Roman as the offensive coordinator. So that's one thing. But also keep an eye on the Ravens and how they use, Derrick Henry. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of criticism towards the Ravens over Derrick Henry not getting a single touch or a single carry in the fourth quarter last week against the Steelers. And it's all, context-based, obviously, the way that game was going. It's not like they desperately needed Derrick Henry, because the game was still within reach, and they were only a 2-point play away from tying that game, and from really not getting anybody to say anything about Derrick Henry. Obviously, if they would have went on and won that game, nobody would have really had a problem with it. But obviously, it gets magnified now because they lost the game, and it looks a lot worse, right? But we'll see if they increase that a lot this game, or they continue to stay true to what they have been doing over the last couple weeks. But I think they need a win like this, over one of their competing AFC teams in the playoffs. I think this win would come to them at a big moment here, as opposed to losing the game, obviously. So that's what we have to look forward to with the Baltimore Ravens. But on the other side, with the Los Angeles Chargers, they're also dealing with some injuries. A lot more positive, I would say, than the Baltimore Ravens, obviously, because their only major inactive tonight is going to be their linebacker Denzel Perryman. He's out. He was already ruled out with a groin injury, so we knew about him. But Ladd McConkey was questionable. I don't see him on here, so he should be good to go. Khalil Mack was on here with a groin injury, but again, I don't see him on here as an inactive, so I'm assuming Khalil Mack is going to play tonight before. Just let me make sure. Yeah, he has no injury designation, so Khalil Mack should be out there as well. And we talked about the Chargers, last week getting a massive win over the Bengals, and it was great because not only did it test their defense, it tested their offense as well to see if they were able to keep up. And now they have a similar sort of challenge here with the Baltimore Ravens. Are they able to keep up and also, hold the Ravens to hopefully less than 27 or 28 points like the Bengals scored? So, it's a similar matchup, against an AFC North opponent. The Bengals and the Ravens, I would say, are pretty similar when it comes to offense, at least. So it's it's something that they've seen before, but with Derek and Lamar, it still brings its own troubles, obviously, for any team by that fact. So we get into the matchups now that I think are going to be very critical going into this game. You look at the first one, J.K. Dobbins facing his former team and facing one of the best, if not the best, rushing defenses in the NFL. J.K. Dobbins had a big impact last week. He scored the game-winning touchdown against the Bengals, but the running defense isn't anywhere near what the running defense for the Ravens is. So can J.K. Dobbins get a little bit of that same sort of flow going in this game, or will the Ravens dominate in that aspect? But also, you have the the missing element with Roquan Smith. So he's not going to be there. How much is this run defense going to look potentially worse without Roquan Smith there, calling all the plays and everything like that? It'll be interesting also to see, who has the green dot on that team now that Roquan doesn't have it. So that'll be a matchup to watch and to kind of keep an eye on. Then, on the other side of things, we have the Chargers wide receivers going up against the passing defense against the Baltimore Ravens passing defense, right? We talked about how last week they played a little bit better, but there's also that sneaky factor that you get with the Chargers where Ladd McConkey had a massive game. Justin Herbert has been so efficient. He doesn't really throw interceptions. I think he's only thrown one this year. So he doesn't really give you that many opportunities, despite the fact that, they don't have, such all-world wide receivers, right? He still doesn't try to force anything. He doesn't make any risky throws or nothing like that. He's very efficient with the ball. So the Ravens passing defense is going to have to be just as efficient and as organized as Justin Herbert, so he doesn't torch them, obviously, like he did the Bengals last week. Then the last matchup I have here is just the Chargers going up against another top offense. Just something to watch, right? Because we'll see if the Chargers offense can do it back-to-back weeks, trying to stop a top offense in the NFL, but also can they take something from last week and learn from it, right? Not be in a situation where maybe they're up in this game and then again, you have the same scenario like, oh, here we go again. The Chargers are going to give up a double-digit lead and potentially lose this game. Do they learn from that and, manage it a little bit better so they don't face that situation tonight? It's another thing to kind of keep an eye on and see how the game, just turns out as we go through the matchup on tonight's agenda. But in terms of my predictions, I actually wrote on here, if Roquan Smith plays, I'm going to go with the Ravens. But if not, I think I'm going to go with the Chargers. You never really see Roquan Smith miss a game, so I don't really have a clear idea of what this defense looks like when Roquan Smith doesn't play, unless they just sit him intentionally to give him some rest. I don't really know what this defense looks like when he doesn't play. I know they have great players like Madubuike and Marlon Humphrey and Kyle Hamilton all playing, but I think Roquan's just different. Like he's everything for that defense. So I think I'm going to go with the Chargers tonight. They're underdogs at home, so I'm sure they're going to be a bit more motivated because of that. I think I'm going to go with the Chargers. I think they're really going to make their case tonight for being in that group with the Ravens, with the Steelers, and definitely with the Texans. I don't think teams are talking about them as much as they do those other teams. So I think this is going to be a good showing from the Chargers, and I'm going to go with them to win here over the Baltimore Ravens. So with less than 45 minutes to go before Monday Night Football kicks off, that is everything for the Chip Shot Football Podcast. I want to thank you guys for joining me. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the show, as well as following the network on all forms of social media. If you want to see more of the show, make sure to check out both YouTube channels, the Podcast Network channel and the Sports Network channel, obviously, where you can see more coverage around the NFL in a variety of different ways. But also, if you just like seeing the live shows, you can join me each and every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time to talk more about the NFL, more reviews, more predictions, more just all around the NFL with the breaking news and things like that. So thank you guys for joining me. I've been your host, Manny Maradiaga, and I'll join you guys tomorrow to recap Monday Night Football and talk some more around the NFL from this week's action.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to